My name is Brian Helmanack. I am our Associate Director of Residence Life here at the University of St. Thomas. My general responsibilities cover our assignments and billing processes. So in the housing world, we tend to call that operations. Most of you met earlier today my counterpart in our office, Erica Thompson, and she handles the residence life side, so our hall staff and everything else. So I'm kind of the counterpoint to that here today. So a little bit of what we're going to do. For those of you who are here now, we're going to talk a little bit about our staff resources, what it means to live on campus, how we engage in communication with our students, and we have a handout that's coming. I came from another meeting and totally forgot it, so I have someone going back and getting that for us right now. So as I talk, we're going to have some students coming through and handing you out a golden flyer, and we'll talk about that a little bit. I promise at some point, you will have your students come back and sit with you. And I'm going to give you another short break. The one thing I would ask for you is that I know you have a lot of questions about their registration and how their day has gone, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes in the middle to do that, as long as you all promise to pay attention to me for the rest of the session. Okay? And then when your students get here, we're going to talk about things like assignments, roommates and how we handle conflict, meal plans, move-in information. We have some frequently asked questions, and if we have a little time at the end for questions, we'll do that. And then we'll proceed to our very, very last session of the day, which will get you up and moving around again if you'd like. So first, our staff resources in our halls. Our biggest resource for our students on our campus are our resident advisors. We call them RAs. They really are our first stop for all questions and concerns that your student may have. So if your student doesn't know how to get to a particular classroom, they can ask their RA. They'll be able to show them where they should go, give them directions. If they are having a problem with their window doesn't shut correctly, they can go to the RA can submit a work order or direct them on how to submit a work order for that. They are great resources. We hire these students, they are student leaders on our campus, and we hire them to be able to answer these questions and help your students. They're also responsible for programming efforts and being able to get our students to interact and be social with one another, get to know each other. We hear a lot about St. Thomas being a suitcase campus. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. We have a lot of students who live locally here, who work other jobs, everything else, but our RAs will make sure that your students are involved and engaged on our campus. They are our mentors, they are our mediators, and they are helpers for your students, if you'd like to think of it in that way. Above our resident advisors are our area or hall directors. These are professional staff living in our halls, and they are responsible for overseeing and supervising our resident advisors, and they also handle kind of the next step up issues when they occur on our campus. So if your student has a violation of our code of conduct, they will probably meet with their area director or hall director. If they have an escalated issue from the RA, so let's say there's a roommate conflict that really is more difficult than the RA can handle, they may involve their area director and hall director. They answer a lot of questions of our students. They oversee our desks in all of our halls and are there as a resource for them as well. So what does it mean to live on campus? You've heard a lot about this, about UST Cares earlier today, but we want our students to really think about taking responsibility in two ways, for their actions and behaviors, and for their self and items. For those of you familiar with Socrates, the Republic, we want our students to have responsibility. With freedom comes responsibility. And for a lot of your students, the very first time they're getting unlimited freedom away from all of you is here on campus. Some of them handle it very, very well, some not so well, okay? So we have some particular areas in our halls that we tend to emphasize. We look at noise. We have quiet hours in our halls, and that means at night when most people are trying to sleep, you're not disrupting them. If I can hear your radio from 3 floors above you, that's not good, okay? During the rest of the time, we have courtesy hours, meaning that even at noon, if I can hear your radio from 3 floors above you, that's not good, okay? I tend to use this example is that if you are in the hallway and walking by, it shouldn't be a really loud noise coming out of your room. There's always going to be noise. If people are talking, have a TV on, things like that. But we're looking at the really loud, wake up the entire building noise. Visitation. We have a visitation. Most of our halls are same-gendered residence halls, meaning men are in one hall, women in one hall. We have one exception to that. Murray Hall is our co-ed hall here for our first-year students and is all Living Learning Community students. We ask that our students do not have guests of the opposite gender overnight and then not past 2 a.m. in the morning. Okay, it's time to go home. Okay. Alcohol, you heard a lot about this earlier. It is against the law for anyone under the age of 21 to consume alcohol in the state of Minnesota. That is the only thing I will point out. And just remember, your student will be held to that standard. Last thing, respect for others. When you're interacting, when you're talking, when you're doing other things, make sure you're being respectful. Be respectful of that they may not have the same background as you. They may not have the same resources. They may not have had the same experience as you, and how can you interact and still be respectful to one another? We ask that they're responsible for their self and their items. We ask that they lock their doors and not lose their keys. Public safety will tell you most of our theft out of residence hall rooms or anywhere is from an unlocked area or an unlocked place. So in the library, you have a laptop out, you walk 20 feet away to answer a phone call. That laptop's not locked down, it might be walking away. Theft is a crime of convenience. You will see in some of these residence hall rooms today that a desk might be right inside the door. If that's where a wallet is, a cell phone, whatever the case may be, and that door's unlocked, to open it, grab it, walk away, 5 seconds. That's all they need. The ID card. Students, you all have your ID card now, right? Woohoo! As he's walking in. This ID card is your life. If you lose it, you can't eat, you can't get into your building. You can go get another one and pay money for it, but make sure that you don't lose it. Last, use of public safety for walking safety. We are an urban campus. I know it's really hard to remember that sometimes when you sit and you overlook this beautiful South Quad and you see these beautiful brand new buildings. We are still in the middle of St. Paul. That means there is crime that can happen in the area around us, and if you are alone, we don't advise you walking alone. Day or night, make sure you have someone around. If you need someone to walk with you, call public safety. They'll arrange for an escort from wherever you are to wherever you need to go. Within here and anywhere within 6 blocks of campus. How do we communicate? We talk about communication with our students. Email is our official form of communication. Most of you figured this out last Friday, the 8th, when you got emails to both your St. Thomas email and a personal email account. I know most of you did not look at your St. Thomas email account to figure out who your roommates were, but starting now, that is where all of our emails are going to go. So make sure that you're looking for emails from reslife@stthomas.edu that generally have very important information that we're trying to share with the students. Our website reflects what we've talked about as well. And as important events are coming up, or closings, or whatever may be happening, we update our website. We try to echo that also on Facebook, as we know most of you are very active on that, students, family members as well, and guests today. If you want to follow us, feel free. You can get a sense of what's going on our campus. There's a parent newsletter. The St. Thomas Parent comes out from the Dean of Students office monthly. I believe that when you do your survey, you have an opportunity to sign up for that, if you have not turned in something already to be able to do that. But it's campus-wide. What are some things, awesome things that are going on our campus? And then phone calls from family. So parent, family members, guests, whoever you are today, here is the trick on this. If you have a concern that your student has shared with you, we know you are all very well generally connected with your students. And if they call you and they're concerned, or they have a question, or they're struggling with their roommate, or they're struggling with a class, ask them what they've done, who they've talked to, what have they done to try to resolve the situation. Because when we get the phone call into our office, this happens, we hear from a family member, and my student is having a roommate conflict. Fix it. Well, that's great. Your student is going to know exactly what happened when I pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I was watching Family Feud last night, and I think you're having a roommate conflict. Don't ask me how I know, it just came to me as I was watching Family Feud. Whatever the case may be, we ask that you have them take responsibility. Come talk to their RA, talk to the area hall director, come talk to us in our central office. So, most of you, I know they're still handing out a couple here, are getting the yellow goldenrod, whatever color sheet that is, coming out. So some things I want to highlight on this for you. There's some suggested tips for parents. For those of you who this is, number 2, number 3, number 4, coming through here or anywhere else, you can look at it, just remind yourself how things might have changed a little bit. For those of you, this is your first student coming here, make sure that you take a look at that. Start thinking about these conversations. It is very difficult once you get here on move-in day and it's time to say goodbye. You don't want to be trying to have those conversations right then. The move-in date is listed on there as Friday, I almost said it wrong, September 2nd this year, starting at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. is because Cretin Avenue has some restrictions on blocking traffic and everything else, so we'll be starting at 9 a.m. More information about move-in will be coming at a later date here in August, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then important dates for housing for this upcoming year. Break informations and whether or not your student needs to sign up. So generally shorter breaks like fall break, which is 1 day, exciting, and a weekend. There's no sign up as a part of that. But Thanksgiving break, which is a couple extra days, when we have spring break, things like that, there are sign-ups required as a part of that. J-term, there is a sign-up required for a part of that. There's no additional cost for any of these things, but we need to know who is on our campus and engage with us on our campus. And then last but not least, end of year move-out date. I will point that out right now. You will lose this sheet, I understand that. But finals week, students are required to be out 24 hours after their last final. Do not ask if they can stay till the following Thursday. That will not go over well with anybody. So just be aware of that, plan ahead, be thinking ahead. I know some of you are really great planners out there because we heard from you like in April about moving already. But so you can plan ahead. For those of you who are a little behind, you do things at the last minute, you have the information. All right, I promise this. You have 3 minutes, if you can promise to come back and let me finish my presentation, to talk to your student about their registration right now. I have no problems talking over you. I just don't want you to miss anything. I've been told I'm loud when I want to be. All right, so that being said, now everyone, I think everyone's back. I haven't gotten the final thumbs up. For those of you just walking in, students, and you're still looking for family members or guests, wave them down, do what you need to do. So assignments. Assignments went out last Friday, July 8th, via email. If you had a personal email on file, whether or not that was a family member's email, which we always find every year is always a little bit entertaining. And then it also went to St. Thomas email address, and it explained how you could access your assignment information at that time. There was a small number of students who did not receive an assignment yet, and they received a separate email that talked about that. Talked to many of you here today about that. So as those spaces become available, we will be assigning everyone. We do have housing for everyone. I am very happy to say that. So that being said, housing deposit date is the most important thing when we assign students. We try to emphasize this on the Class of 2020 Facebook page multiple times. To what extent it was understood is a little bit sketchy or misunderstood at times. But if people requested exact roommates, and if you did that through Facebook and you didn't talk about your housing deposit dates, you may not have ended up in your first choice because we averaged those 2 dates together. Now, I'm not going to blame your roommate. but it might be your roommate's fault. It could be your fault, just so we're aware. But understand that that is really what dictates that. The one thing I would tell you about Murray, many people had Murray as a #1 choice. Murray has completely been filled with our living learning communities in that area. So we will be talking about a wait list here next week. Students will receive an email. What I'll tell you about that is this. Trying to move as a group of people, 2, 3, or 4, into another building is probably unlikely. Generally what we see is a single space here and there in different buildings. The other piece about that I'll indicate is that if we have the space to do it, we will try to honor it, but if it's because you're feeling, oh, my roommate and I just aren't quite jiving, I ask you to really put some effort into that. Here's the trick on this. Just because I move you from one space to another space doesn't mean your roommate situation will get any better necessarily. Because I can't guarantee that that new roommate has good enough preferences to match you. You also don't have an option to choose. It's not like I'm going to send you a name and let you think about it for a week. We don't have the time period for that, okay? So it's going to be, you're offered to move to the space, yes or no, done. Okay. Now, what I will say is 90% of our students tend to get their first or second choice in housing by the time we open the halls. So that means there is always a little bit of movement. It is just very limited. Other important information that came in that postal mailing, and that came out, we were sending a Monday, Tuesday of this upcoming week for most of this group, is that there's a student information flyer in there, and that's the most important one. It's color brochure, front and back. The back side talks about what to bring and what not to bring. Students, I want you to focus on the what to bring piece. Parents, families, guests, I want you to focus on the what not to bring list. And you are responsible to go through your student stuff to make sure they're not bringing a toaster, a water bed, a tanning bed, whatever that might be. Okay. And there's some vendor flyers in there, bedloft.com. All of our rooms are lofted now. You don't have to request it. You don't have to rent anything anymore, for those of you who've been here before. But you can rent micro fridges. It's a microwave refrigerator unit from year to year. You can rent that, and you can also purchase futons. This is my push this year. Instead of trying to figure out how to fit that futon into your trucks, you can purchase it, have it sent here, and put in the room so it's here when you arrive. Think about it. Something to think about. The one thing I want to point out here as well, I'm going to go back to roommates. Actually, I think it's my next slide. Perfect. Roommates. I just came up from a conference earlier this week, and one of the researchers at that conference talked about roommate matching and what are those things that make roommate matches work. The #1 indicator of whether or not roommates got along was if they had casual conversation every day. What they mean by that is, hello, how's your day going? How are classes? What time are you going to dinner? Casual conversation. #1 indicator in satisfaction of roommates. If you don't want to talk to your roommate, you're probably going to be less satisfied. Just keep that in mind. We do roommate agreements with all of our students once they get here. That opening weekend you are here, you will be very, very busy. You have lots to do. One of those things is to start your roommate agreement. And those are facilitated by RRAs. You'll work on it together, and you'll talk about that. Some of the things that we point out and that we require, that if you have communication, it has to be face-to-face, particularly when conflict is involved. That means no Facebook messaging, no vague booking, no texting each other on the opposite side of the room. I've seen it happen. Nor sending a nasty tweet about your roommate, who is also following you on Twitter. Passive-aggressive doesn't work in roommate conflict, so just remember that. Use a mediator. If you're having a hard time communicating together, get somebody else involved, whether that's your RA, whether that's the area director or hall director. This will generally be a requirement prior to any room changes. Moving tends to be a last option. We will open with very, very few spaces. Those spaces will probably not be in the hall you want to live in, and there's no guarantee, and I said this before, that that new roommate is going to be any better than the old one. How I put it is this: why do you think that person doesn't have a roommate? See, now I feel bad, because one of you is going to have a student who their roommate drops out the last second, is not going to have a roommate, and you're thinking that it's their fault. It's not their fault. I just want you to know that. It's not always a bad case, but a lot of times it is. So, meal plans. For those of you who have not looked at our meal plan, or you didn't get a chance to talk to Gail today during the information fair, Gail will automatically always tell you to start low and start on the Block 150 plan. For those of you who did talk to her, she's very passionate about it. You can change your meal plans online. So when you get home tonight, if you're on that Block 225 plan, and I'm going to approach the moms in the room. Mom, we promise your student is not going to starve while they're here. There is more free food on this campus. I generally don't have to bring a lunch about 3 days a week, just so you know. That's a good thing for me, not necessarily for everybody else. But that being said, it's a use it or lose it situation. So if your student is on that Block 225 and they eat 100 meals, you just paid for 125 meals your student didn't eat, and you will not get a refund. That includes your flex dollars. Flex dollars are not usually an issue for our students to use. The lower their meal plan, usually the more flex dollars they get. Okay? You can change your meal plan until the Friday of the semester, second Friday of the semester, excuse me, and that's done in our online system. That's where you found your roommate information. There's a link right below it about changing meal plans. You can purchase an additional block of 20 meals at any time in the semester. So if there's 3 weeks left, you only have 10 meals, and you want to buy a block of 20, you can do that. Flex dollars, so that's what comes with your meal plan. So think flex food. Flex is for only on-campus food venues. Some of you have probably heard about the Express Card program, or Express Dollars. Think of it as a cash card that you can use both on campus and at certain off-campus locations. The card office website has the most updated information, but they continue to add. They added about 6 vendors in the last year, and they're continuing to do so and expand that program. Move in on Friday, September 2nd. Like I said, in early August, we will send you information. That will include a parking card. You get 1 parking card per student moving in. Generally, that means you probably should have 1 vehicle for moving in your student. If there's a lot of people who want to come visit, my personal recommendation is if other family members want to come, pick a different weekend. We have a family weekend on October that's great to do that. Move-in is chaos. And people can get lost and left behind, and it can be very interesting. But that being said, 1, if you need 2 vehicles because you have smaller vehicles, you'll be able to bring 1 through at a time to be able to drop off items. So you'll need to move that card as you move along. U-Hauls and trailers are not allowed. If you show up with either of those 2 things, you will not get anywhere near campus to unload, just so you're aware. The way we have to run traffic is that we can't handle those 2 items. The other thing I want you to think about with U-Hauls is that for those of you going on tours today, you're going to see a sample room. Note the size of that room compared to the size of an average U-Haul. And you're only 1 student. Think 2 of them now. Generally, it won't fit. Students, what I tend to tell you, take the amount of stuff you think you need, cut it in half. Particularly clothes. You are not going to wear nearly as much clothes as you think because you're not going to want to wash them all. So remember that. We have Sully's crew. This is our move-in crew. We have staff, upper class students, faculty who come and they help our students move in, including some of our parent network folks. They come in, they help out. They will be here and active that day helping you unload vehicles, get it to your car, bring it back. Okay? Early arrivals, for those of you who are coming on campus for athletic or academic reasons, that would include our living learning communities, varsity sports, there's a business thing, I forget, or entrepreneurship thing. I can't think of the title, sorry. All of that, you will get additional information about that via email, St. Thomas email, in early August with your move-in information. So, let's see how we're doing on time. Oh, good. Frequently asked questions. Will we see my room today? You will see a sample room today in the hall of your choice. There is no ability to get into exact rooms in most of our buildings because we have various camps in. We just had a cheer camp move in today. There's a lot of them. You will probably hear cheering as you go up the quad. But that being said, we need you to stick with your group. Do not wander. We have promised, the safety and security of our conference guests. Many of them are youth, so we need to ask that you stick together. And our staff has made sure all the doors are locked in all the other rooms, so you're not going to get in anyway. Okay? We talked a little bit about waitlist already. Right now, we're not accepting this. You will receive an email probably in the next week or so if that becomes an option. The big one, renter's insurance. Another thing I'm going to emphasize this year. We highly recommend that you have some sort of insurance for your items in your room. If you own a home and you have homeowners, you should check with them, but please note that your deductible is probably pretty high. You will get a brochure in August. They unfortunately did not get to us here by the time our assignment letters went out, but they will be sending them here shortly. They have some very reasonable rates. It's a company we've used for the last 10 years now, and they do great work. They cover loss and damage, even accidental damage, like dropping your cell phone in a toilet. That happens. It also covers for when the person down the hall from you hangs their clothes on a shower head, a fire sprinkler head, and accidentally knocks it off and floods the entire floor. That has happened as well. Our university insurance does not cover personal loss. That's the part I would need to point out here. How does housing work for next year? On the back of that form, you'll talk a little bit about applications start in December. Selection happens before spring break in March. One thing that's in there in kind of italics, most of our sophomores do not live in apartments. Flynn and Morrison are pretty unlikely for sophomores. We do have some additional spaces for sophomores. We have some sophomore apartments, and our Flynn suites tend to be very popular. So please keep that in mind now. Again, students, you're not going to remember that come March, and you'll be very angry with me, but I'm going to always point you back that I told you so. Okay? Laundry. Laundry is free in all of our halls. You walk up, you push the button, and it goes. It's wonderful. Teach your student laundry before they get here, please. There is some directions up there. Some of them are not very good. Our laundry vendor encourages laundry pods because it gives the correct amount of detergent that you need. We've seen people with the big things and just pour. Way too much soap. So, all right. Now this is the time you're all waiting for. Actually, I think I got a minute. Let's look. I have time for 2 questions. Who's it going to be? Oh, they're all anxious. They saw the tour. Yes, sir. Yes, extra long twin mattresses. So extra long twin bedding is preferred. Yes. One last one? Yes, in the back. That's a really good question. I don't have a good answer. Measure it when you go into the room today. So you'll get a good sense of how they are. So. All right, so I need you to just sit still for a second, keep your voices down, because we're going to dismiss you in a particular manner. So first off, I have some folks that are going to come up and hang out by me. Yes. Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Vito. Your name tags. You can keep everything inside your plastic name tag. You can keep your lanyard. But the plastic wreath thing, they are asking you to turn that in as you walk out to go to your tour. So thank you in the back for reminding me of that. So first off, my guys who all came to see me today, Brendan Corbin, Zach Ritter, Connor Gagnon, Cole Engstrom, Jack Lall, and Luke Hennon. You're going to come up and hang out with me for a little bit as we dismiss everybody else. Where are my Cretan and Grace tour guides in the back? They're hiding. There they are, Cretan and Grace. If you are going to Cretin and Grace for your tour, please go to the far south door. We have 2 wonderful tour guides down there holding their signs. Go that way, please. He's got Ireland. All right, Cretin and Grace is going to go out into the hallway, look for the signs up in the air.